Hey, welcome back everyone to Todd's podcast and our entrepreneurial series. We were calling it Launching from Scratch, where we talk to folks who've started a business relatively recently, some of the struggles they've gone through, how they've overcome those struggles, some of their successes. And our guest today on our second version of Launching from Scratch is TJ Zimmerman. TJ is one of the owners and entrepreneurs of Concord Coffee. So we're going to talk to TJ a little bit about himself, how he got started, how he came up with the name, and go through some of the things and how you've gotten to where you are today. TJ, if that's all right, welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I've known you for a while now, Todd, and even I think you went to school with my mom, I think back in the day, right? At Winter Haven.
Yep.
And
Wait a minute. She's a lot younger than me, probably.
Is she? Well,
at least say that on the podcast.
Some of those similar paths.
Yep.
But no, I'm excited and love where you're going with this, and it's always good when people can offer platforms to those in entrepreneurship, and it's rewarding, but also very challenging at times. So I'm excited and happy to talk with you.
Good. Well, I'm glad you're here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of what was your motivation to start Concord? I think you started, in 2015?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So I met Andy McIntyre, who is the original partner with myself. We both met as summer camp counselors in a camp in Leesburg. I ended up actually meeting my wife there the year before I met Andy, and then Andy and I both met the year later after my first year there, and we both just had a lot of like interest. We liked a lot of the same sports and things along those lines, and so we just developed a really good friendship. And through those years, after camp and graduating college, he opened a successful video company, Indie Atlantic Films, which is based in Lakeland. And we just started talking about always wanting to do something together. The original idea back in 2006, when Andy and I started talking about this, is we loved baseball. So we're like, let's open up a hot dog shop and a shaved ice and an ice cream and a film studio and a coffee shop all in one. And I'm glad that didn't come to fruition. But through the years, we kept kind of just bringing it up here and there. And Andy ended up going up to Jacksonville. I moved out to Dallas, Texas for work for a little bit. And then we both ended back up in Lakeland. And we just started talking about it. And it was one day we were sitting down actually having coffee. And we said, hey, do you remember that dream that we had together of opening a coffee shop and all those other things? And we said, yeah, that would be awesome. And Andy had traveled a lot due to his film company all over the world, all over the country, and trying all the different nuances of coffee, the different gadgets and things along those lines. And he would always bring that back and have me try the new gadget. I was never a big, huge coffee drinker.
Okay.
And I always loved just the community aspect of what a coffee shop is and what you see and what you think about of just people finding a place. And it seems like it's a place where people can just come and relax. It's almost like a second home, it kind of feels like. And so I was really attracted to that side of the business and what that could potentially turn into. And about 2013, 2014, we both were, like I said, back here in Lakeland, and we just started talking about it again and realizing that there's this third wave of craft coffee shops that are happening. And Lakeland really didn't have that. And so we said, let's look and see and explore. And the doors just started opening. And so we were looking about that, talking about that, and in 2015, the doors of Concord opened.
What were you doing before that? Were you an entrepreneur, or you always worked for someone else? What did you wake up and say, hey, I kind of want to be my own boss now?
So at the camp that we worked at, it was working with a lot of middle and high school students. Okay. And I particularly my focus was a lot with the high school students. And so I got a job offer right out of college and was working in a church with middle and high school students, and fell in love with that. It was the perfect time, perfect fit. So I was working under the leadership of the church and the pastors.
Were you the youth director?
I was the youth director.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I started off as an assistant and worked under a really phenomenal guy who ended up moving out and was kind of thrown into the deep end of a little bit of running a large youth group. So some of those skills and abilities that have translated over for what I'm doing now, especially dealing and working with people. I got my degree from Florida Southern in sociology, so I always loved being around people, the aspect of people, looking at the groups of people. I'm one of those types that could just sit down in a mall and just people watch. I love, that's something.
Are you snarky when they walk by, or you say,
no,
keep it to yourself?
No facial expressions or finger pointing, but I just love that it's the interesting dynamics of people, and really try to incorporate that within the youth group, making sure that everybody is welcomed, and that is really translated over into both of our locations that Concord has, which is here in Lakeland and Gainesville, in those staff and being able to have a variety of different staff members. But it's awesome to see that group and the cohesiveness that they have. So that was my job previously, was working with youth ministry, and I did that for 13 years, and then moved full-time into Concord.
Were you you mentioned that you didn't drink much, but were you like a coffee aficionado, snob, or, hey, just give me a cup of decaf and I'll put some sugar and cream in it and choke it down?
Yeah, no. So the only real coffee experience that I had was, when I would meet with a student and their parent, we'd go to a coffee shop and I would have something there. But no, I was not, and still to this day, not a, first thing in the morning. Like my wife, Lindsay, she's first thing in the morning is the coffee drinker, making sure that there's enough coffee ready for the next day. And so, no, I was not. But through the years and growing the business, it was kind of this next step, and I think we'll probably get to this a little bit later, but beginning to roast coffee is where I really honed in those skills, and where I really developed that knowledge. And Andy even jokes to this day, like, Andy had a good knowledge, but he's like, TJ will far surpass me and tell me and go down the rabbit trail of coffee way farther than I could ever think of.
How hard was it to learn how to roast coffee? I mean, do you go to like a class or a school or a crash course or some farm in Bolivia? Or
Yeah, so I ended up coming full time, and shortly after that, we got into the roasting aspect of our business. And no, it was a lot of trial and error. We got our roasters through a company called the San Franciscan Roaster Company.
The equipment,
the actual roaster, yes, sir. And so we got the roaster itself and got all of that equipment that was needed. And before it was shipped to us, I flew out to Carson City, Nevada, where it was manufactured. And this was now in the middle of the dead of winter out there, and learned that process through them, which then I tried to bring back to Florida, and all of those temperatures and all that was thrown out the window. And so it was basically like starting from scratch. And
exterior temperature makes that much of a difference in even though you're roasting inside?
Absolutely. Coffee is very finicky. Even to how you store it, there's a lot of myths of, don't put it in the freezer, airtight container. So there's a lot of nuances. Coffee is a very finicky thing if you really dive down into the little nitty gritties of it and trying to get the peak taste profiles out of that. But yeah, so we just did a lot of trial and error. We had a small roaster and that would put out about 3 pounds of coffee every roast, which takes about 15 minutes from the time you put the coffee in and till the time it's done. And we would get about 3 pounds, and I literally filled up probably 3 or 4 massive trash bins before we were comfortable of putting our coffee on the shelves.
Right.
Because previously, before that, we were buying roasted coffee from literally award-winning roasters all over the nation. And so I wasn't going to just put our coffee on the shelves and say, well, here we are.
That's right.
And so it took a lot of trial and error testing to get it to that point of where we're at now.
Do you have a roaster also in Gainesville, or you just have one down here and you just take it back and forth?
So yeah, we have one. We have actually 2 roasters on site here in Lakeland. With the expansion of our Gainesville shop and really working with a bunch of other wholesale businesses and clients and coffee shops, schools and universities, we saw the need that we needed to expand and upgrade our roasting setup. So we actually ended up getting a much larger roaster from the same company, and which can put out about 20 pounds every 15 minutes. So it's something that we use now currently But yeah, no, everything is shipped out from our Lakeland location, all over the United States, all over the world.
Do you have a special blend for Gainesville, for like a Gator blend or Hogtown something or whatever?
Yeah, no, so all of our coffee is single origin. So we actually haven't ever really blended coffees. So we've tried to pay homage as much as possible to the farmers and those that have grown the coffee, those that import it, and so we really try to pay, like I said, homage to those and keep those names in there, keep it single origin, and try to source those coffees that are going to be more for those taste profile. But no, we haven't really had that select coffee, but we do a lot of white labeling, and we've done some fun things along that.
What does white labeling mean? So
white labeling is basically if you go to like your local grocery store and you see that their name is on that package of cheese, high likelihood they don't have a cheese factory.
So you produce a generic brand and they put their label on it.
Correct. Yeah. So they come up with a label and we will label that bag and then talk to them, work with them on what profile they want their coffee, what, light, medium, dark roast, and kind of the tasting notes that they're looking for. And so we work with those companies and give somebody a platform to basically have their own coffee brand without having to purchase and run all those equipment.
Well, I know, full disclosure, not that I have to or not, but you supply the coffee for our office here at Saunders Real Estate.
Correct.
And I've seen a bag back there with Dean Special Blend. I don't know if y'all blend something that doesn't sound like it. Maybe just someone goes back there with a Sharpie and say, hey, this is Dean's coffee or whatever. But we do appreciate it. And, we are big buyers and big believers, maybe not big buyers, but we're big believers in you and your company and enjoy your product a lot.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Thank you.
So you just celebrated your 10th anniversary?
We did.
Or is that like 2 Fridays ago or a Friday ago?
This past Friday. Yes, sir.
And did you have a big celebration, kind of low key, or just sit back and say, oh my God, I cannot believe we made it 10 years?
There's a lot of that. Throughout the whole day I was there from open to close, and a lot of people were like, what does it feel like to be 10 years into this? And, does it feel like it's been 10 years? And my answer to most of them was, some days it feels like it's been 10 years, and some days it feels like it was just a snap of the fingers. But yeah, we wanted to celebrate, and really honestly, we wanted to celebrate, the success that we have had, but also give back to the community. That's something that Andy and I are very passionate about. We have a meeting space in our coffee shop that is free to nonprofits if they need a place to meet, and we really wanted to celebrate with our customers, our regulars. But we had some fun. We did some giveaways with some local people here in town and some local companies, and we had a good time. It was a good turnout.
Where's your shop located here in Lakeland and also in Gainesville?
So our shop in Lakeland is located in the Dixieland area. Best way to describe it is if you know the old post office right across from the Schwinn bike shop. We're in that plaza right there, right across from Good Time. They're friends of ours. And then our Gainesville location is right across the street from the business school at 13th and University, right next to the Standard. So it's right there, right up front, right on the main road right there in Gainesville.
When we were talking in kind of the pre-interview, you had said you closed the doors up there for several months during the summer because the students go away.
Yeah,
you close them all the way, or run a skeleton crew, or
we the first few years when we were open. So we actually opened that location. It was excellent timing to open a business in 2019, in September of 2019. No idea COVID was around the corner, but yeah. So fortunately, the people that we leased from, we were also very good friends with them from that camp that Andy and I met at. So it's a pretty cool connection there. But yeah, we try to stay open the first few years, and the sales are just it's a ghost town right on that area. And so we just realized, let's really focus, hammer those 2 semesters at school or in town, and then we ramp back up. But that store is very unique, very different than the Lakeland shop. Every year we have to reinvent ourselves
because every
year you have new students. But now I think we're starting to really gain traction, and a lot more people are saying, well, that's the place you need to go to. That's the place that really cares about the coffee. And that's very much like our Lakeland location, because, we're not Concord Coffee and sell excellent sandwiches or things. So we have other things on our menu as far as like teas and things like that. We have some snacks, and we work with some really good local bakers and bagel companies here in town. But we really focus in on our coffee, and I think that's something that is shared and known within both communities that we serve.
Todd's podcast is sponsored in part by Saunders Real Estate, your trusted partner in land and commercial real estate since 1996. With over 125 expert advisors located throughout the Southeast United States, the full-service brokerage specializes in a wide range of property types from farms and ranches to commercial buildings and development land. If you're looking to build your legacy with a confident investment, please visit saundersrealestate.com or call 877-518-5263 to connect with an advisor today. So you have a good turnover every year of new students coming to town. Have you been able to penetrate the year-round local resident that stays in Gainesville? I would think that's where, your bread and butter is kind of made. This is me not knowing, but I would think, those are the ones who are going to, frequent your establishment year-round if you decide to stay open.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the other things about, and we knew this going into this location, was it is very pedestrian dependent.
Yep.
In that area, there is not a lot. There's a parking garage behind a hotel that is behind us. So the accessibility of just being able to pull up, park your car, go in and grab a cup of coffee just isn't there. So that's, I think, why we haven't really, there's other coffee shops in Gainesville that have that local community feel of being able to pull up, go in and year round, where that location just is not. And it's not just our shop that does that. There are multiple other shops and locations around us that take that hiatus and that break from that time period. And it's really has worked out really great for us because all of our staff are college students, even our managers that we have. And so allowing them to have that break and not having to figure out, okay, how are we going to financially support having a full-time person when we have the income that is not anywhere in comparison to our Lakeland location that has, anytime you think about any time of the day, you can come to our shop in Lakeland and not have to worry about parking.
Do you see sales go up days of Gator games? Or does that hurt you perhaps because people are in town looking for beer and other sorts of stimulants?
You hit the nail on the head. Most people don't tailgate with coffee.
I get it.
And so we...
at least in Florida.
Yes. And no, like that's... we work closely with the company that we lease is the Gator Wesley Foundation. And so they'll do some like breakfasts and things along those lines of working and doing a small kind of tailgate with some people that come in. But no, like game days are actually some of our lowest days just because everybody is focused in that party atmosphere. They're going down to the swamp and they are indulging in other beverages besides coffee.
I spent 5 wonderful years up there in college, and I was never looking for a coffee shop on game day. I was looking for other sorts of stimulants. You talk about the flexibility of your lease, the flexibility of your landlords. Talk about how important that landlord-tenant relationship is to your 2 locations even.
Absolutely. I think that is a thing when people come to us and in the times that I've been asked to speak on panels about entrepreneurship, that is something that I am very adamant with them about sharing is you have to have a good relationship with your landlord and whoever that is. It will pay tenfold from where you're at and where you're thinking. Our landlord here is Corey Petkoff with Barron Realty, and they caught our vision. They caught Andy and I's dream. Corey, when we sat down with him, go back. Corey was a counselor for 1 year at the camp that we were at.
Really?
So, different times, but just we had a lot of commonality. Andy's studio was in that plaza, and so we saw the attitude that Corey had towards our shop. We showed him our plan, definitely have a solid business plan. I know that there's tons of people that probably come up to him and say, I've got a great business idea. And it just is not the right fit. But, he saw our plan and saw what we were doing, and we've proven ourselves to Corey. And I think that when you see, and as well as the Gator Wesley Foundation up in Gainesville, when you can show and prove that, like, they've really helped us when COVID hit. We didn't need a whole lot of assistance, but that definitely helped a little bit. But just also knowing that, they have your back and they support you. it is a huge thing to look for when you're trying to start or launch your own business.
Yeah, I think that is so important to have that relationship with the landlord. One, always be honest with them. They're not your partner. They don't have the same last name, so they don't have to be involved in your business. But you do need to have that relationship where you can say, hey, things are slow. Can I have a little relief this month? Maybe we'll make it up next month or extend. So
Absolutely.
I applaud you for realizing that so often. How did you pick your location? Was it, hey, this just happened to fall into our lap? Or did you strategically say, and again, let's talk about Lakeland because that's your first one. Did you strategically say, I want to be in Dixieland because I'm within X number of walking distance? Or
Yeah, so that was a big thing with looking at this location. We obviously wanted to start a business, start a coffee shop. So it's like, what's the best spot? Obviously, South Florida Avenue is the main thoroughfare through Lakeland, and so we couldn't see anything, and we talking with Corey because that was Andy's landlord already within that complex, and nothing was there quite yet. And then a couple things happened, and then all of a sudden he said, well, I have this spot, and it was actually a tattoo shop at the time. And so we started looking at it and we said, let's do it. We loved the aspect. We could kind of see the growth happening within Lakeland 10 years ago of the excitement that was building around Lakeland. And we saw the parking lot, and we just thought that was going to be a massive thing. A lot of people, when we first were sharing them the location, they're like, you guys are crazy. This is not going to happen. This is not on, your business front is not on South Florida.
First time I came there
signage
in person, I couldn't find it.
Yeah, and so that happened.
Talking me through, go turn left at this place.
And so we had a lot of, in the very first few years, a lot of people not knowing where, exactly where it was, learning, Google and all these other platforms, how to get your map on there correctly.
Right.
And, but now we've seen that aspect of, the downtown Lakeland has taken off and a lot of these other areas, but it's still that notion of, if you want to have a meeting, if you want to meet with somebody, even a large group, you're going to find parking. You don't have to park in a parking garage and walk 3 blocks or 2 blocks. You're right there, right at our shop. But it was also that neat aspect of, hey, I found this new place. Let me come show you this new coffee shop that I found. It was almost kind of that like speakeasy aspect of like, I found this new thing. Let me go tell my friend this new location. And so that it really played a key benefit to us. And we're seeing that now, obviously, with the growth of Polk County, the massive influx of people that have come in. We've seen our shop take off. And so I think that location having some outside undercover seating as well as inside patio seating, there's a variety of places for people to gather, and it kind of, that location was key, I think, in the success of that shop.
Do you have an expansion mindset right now? Do you think Lakeland could handle it or support another Concord Coffee, or would you need to be looking at other demographics, Northeast Polk County, South Polk County, other parts of the state?
Yeah, we've always have been open. I mean, of course, obviously we've been approached. We've almost pulled the trigger on a couple other places and locations, and it got down to that kind of, time of, we need to say yes or no, and it was like we didn't have that gut feeling that said yes, this is a good location and a good spot. And so we have been very cautious and hesitant. The Gainesville was one of those locations that we just could not say no to. Right. Perfect spot, great atmosphere, and working with some really great friends of ours. And so we haven't. Andy and us are also dads. Andy has 2 sons. I have one who's a sophomore in high school, getting ready to.
You've got to make him go to Gainesville and work in your shop. That'll twist him off.
I know, Todd, I'm not actually a big Gator fan. Andy and I are both big Florida State fans. And so,
okay, I think that'll do it today for our visit with TJ.
So,
and we'll just go and watch the Gators in the Final Four.
No, we've actually have cheered them on with some of that. But no, going back to your question, no, like we're big family. We're big on family, and Andy is a coach of his sons. I coached my son Landon all in sports. He's getting ready to start his private pilot's license. So we want to be there with our our family. If that right fit happens, yeah, I think that Lakeland could support another location. But one of the areas that we are looking at really expanding and putting in our time and energy and effort on is growing the e-commerce wholesale side of our company.
Okay.
We look at locations and you can only squeeze so much out of one lemon. And we realize that, we can
Or coffee out of one bean.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. There you go. I like that one a little bit better.
For you.
But the e-commerce online sales side is endless possibilities. And so right now we're taking and looking at how do we make our website better? How do we increase that online presence and really do an excellent job of growing that side of the company, just hand in hand of how we've poured in that energy and effort to each of our locations. We want to do that now with our e-commerce. We've had a online presence, but not really. And so now we are in that mindset of this is where we want to grow. Concord is really pushing e-commerce sales, but also seeing how we can grow our wholesale side of our company.
Is Andy still a partner? It sounds like he is.
Yeah, Andy's very much as a partner.
Okay.
We also have another partner with us who is a minority ownership that helped us get the roasting side off of it. They're up in Pensacola. Brian and Emily Lay. They're fantastic. They both own companies and help out a lot with our company. But yeah, Andy is full time and run
Right.
founder CEO. If there's a title that Andy probably wouldn't want to put on that, but very much with the film company, and he has a lot of trust in me.
Good.
With Concord. So I run day-to-day operations for the company, and Andy, he'll step in and we'll talk. We have both of our locations. My offices are right there in the same complex, so we see each other all the time, and we're always talking. And he's got great ideas and comes and we execute those. And but yeah, he's definitely very much a part of the coffee shop.
Hey, listeners.
Hey, everyone.
Hola.
Hi, all.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, this is Rob Palumbo.
This is Fred Hyde.
This is Juliet Ashley Vide.
Dr. Angela Garcia Falconetti.
This is Congressman Scott Franklin.
This is Margie Grant.
This is Jake Palumbo.
And I want to thank you for listening to Todd's podcast.
Thank you for listening to Todd's podcast.
Thank you for listening to Todd's podcast.
Please make sure that you like and or subscribe.
Don't forget
Don't forget
Don't forget to subscribe to Todd's podcast on your favorite podcast app. Tune in and listen.
Join in and listen to us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
How'd you come up with the name Concord Coffee? Because I know the Entrepreneur Series was a struggle for us to come up with. I'm still trying to commit it to memory. The name of Todd's podcast was a struggle to come up with. So trying to find something that reflects what your vision is, how you want to execute that vision. It's not necessarily the easiest thing in the world. And Todd's podcast shows a lack of imagination, I think, on my part from time to time.
No, it was one of the most difficult things starting the company, and because it's basically naming your baby, and this is going to be the name of your baby growing up, and for their life, and so it was pretty much, we were already going into construction. The shop was within a month or two of being able to be open. The equipment was all ordered, and it was like, we're in the last hour and we need to come up with a name. So we actually, anybody that we knew that was close to us that had that creative mindset, my wife Lindsay was there, Andy and his wife Ashley, and some other people that we knew and trusted. And we just sat there and literally on a whiteboard just started coming up, writing names down, and ended up just Googling, what we loved, community, relationship, and welcome, being a part of something. And this word Concord kept coming up. We wrote it on the board, and we were just kind of like, okay, let's write it on the board. And we just kept coming back, and we just kept talking about that. Obviously, Concord is connected with other things. People think of the plains, grapes, in North Carolina, the city, and but the definition of Concord being an agreement or harmony between people stuck with us, and that's what we wanted, and that's
the meaning of Concord.
Yeah. And actually, if you go to both of our locations, in our meeting room and in the back wall in our Gainesville shop, we actually put the definition, the word Concord, how you'd see it in a definition book, and it's an agreement or harmony between people.
You talk about it's kind of like naming your child. I don't know if I've ever said this on the podcast. I might have once, but when my first child was born, we were struggling to find a name. We found one that we both liked, and for whatever reason, we just couldn't quite execute. And then we finally had the nurse said, "You can't take your baby home until you come up with a name," and we gave her the name. And now it's like, within an hour, it's like, this child has no other name than the one that we gave her, that she just fits it. And, we've been very blessed the whole time. So it's a lot like you. Once you give it the name and you attach that name to the entity, then it just becomes that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've been very intentional about the look of the shop, how, what we use to decorate and design. And we even had somebody that came up to us, it might have been Andy's mom, that came up to me and said, "You know what, on our 10-year anniversary," she said, "the shop still looks the same in the sense of, it doesn't feel outdated."
Right.
And we had a good team of people around us that were forward thinkers in the aspect of, let's not pick something that's trendy for now. What's a timeless. And so, we've tried to be very intentional about the things that we do.
Has your role changed or evolved since you began to what you are 10 years later? Or do you still clean every bathroom and clean the roaster and make the deposits and do everything from top to bottom?
Yes, I see those businesses and things, and I hear from our employees of like, you amaze me that you're still the one cleaning or doing this. Even on our 10-year anniversary, Andy says, "We have a leak." And I'm like, "Oh gosh, what is this?" End up one of our sinks is spilling stuff out everywhere. So I'm in my clothes down there, screwing and fitting pipes. And, I'm the one if something gets clogged to try to work on that. But my role has been, when I first started at Concord, yes, I was behind the counter. I was working. We're still a small company. So, there were the times that, I could not take a paycheck and not pay my employees. They came first.
I think that's something almost every entrepreneur has done.
Yeah. And so that was a lot of how it was in the very beginning. And so I was behind the bar. I was the roaster. Now my role has kind of changed as almost like the facilitator of both locations and running the roasting side. We have a good friend of mine, Rick, who does all of our roasting and packaging. So I'm kind of the overseer, the coach, but also still, a lot of people say, "Do you miss not being in youth ministry?" And I'm like, I'm still in it in a different capacity. I'm still, working with and trying to create an atmosphere and an environment that is welcoming. I think that's one of my biggest joys is when people ask me, "What's your biggest success and what is something that makes you proud of your company?" And I think I always try to answer them in the sense of, I love when I walk over from my office into the shop and I see all of our staff there hanging out. Mm-hmm. They could go off the clock and hang out anywhere else. I remember jobs that I had growing up where I am like looking at the clock, looking at my watch and being like, it is 4:58, 4:59, 5 o'clock gone, let's go. But they love being there and being a part of that community, and they've created really good friendship. And that's something that I see. So I'm kind of that, sorry, there's a long answer to your, what do you do? But I love being the coach, being a mentor, being facilitating, kind of helping, definitely overseeing both shops and their success. But it's definitely switched, and I think that's something about entrepreneurship is you've got to be flexible because those roles are always going to change. And then the next day, and that's the one thing I love about it is the day is sometimes not going to be, you might have things on your calendar, but that can get all blown out of the water very quickly, owning your own business.
What's the hardest part about being an entrepreneur or a small business right now? I know you started during COVID, or you didn't start during COVID. You expanded during COVID, and you were operating as many businesses were. But what's been the hardest thing about being that small business owner? And
yeah, I mean, I think obviously the first thing that comes to mind is, I was the obvious choice for one of us when we said, my wife has she's very successful in her company and her business, and Andy owning a company, I was the one that had to come. And so obviously taking...
You won by default?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was the one obviously that left the salary job. And so having some of those strains financially is obviously going to be one of the hardest things about jumping full in with entrepreneurship. And so having some of those tough late night talks and figuring that out. I think that, people don't often see the behind the scenes of something. I think a lot of people think, oh my gosh, coffee shop, that's got to be the best thing ever. And they see the Instagram and social media side and the fun aspects of the coffee
friend
shop.
side of it.
Absolutely, yeah. And so they don't see the tax reconciliation, the paying every city, and all of that you have to go through and pay. And so those are the times that you just want to bang your head against the wall.
Yeah.
The times that I'll get frustrated when I'm on the weekend and trying to spend time with my family, and I have to drop because, hey, so we have something going on that it just needs attention. And so, little things I think are but most of the time it's been a blessing and something that I'm glad that we were able to put into both cities, both locations, and at a place that people love coming to.
Once you found your location, what were the barriers of entry into the market? Was it capital? Was it finding employees? You obviously had an idea. You now had a location. You kind of had a concept. What were some other things that you had to overcome?
Yeah, obviously, the financial side of it. See, we have this amazing dream. How do you pay for it? Coffee equipment. I think a lot of people, I've had baristas that come and say, I want to open a coffee shop. And, I ask them, we have a conversation about what do they want to do. And I ask them, how much do you think this is going to cost? And $20,000. And I'm like, we've got pieces of equipment that cost more than $20,000. So talking to them and realizing, and especially with us, how are you going to pay for it? Obviously, that was a huge barrier of entry to us. That's something that I kind of talk with people who come and approach me. And, fortunately, we are blessed with my grandmother, my Nana, was able to help give us a pretty significant gift to get us going,
right?
Which was a massive help. And then really we also had a lot of connections through friendships that we had developed. Things cost differently than they do now. And so that's obviously was one of the biggest ones, but we also, like I said, had a lot of help. I am not afraid to roll up my sleeves and do the work myself. I know some people aren't able to do that. But that's, I'd probably say if you're, starting off business, a lot of people say is, how am I going to pay for this?
Right.
Obviously, there's small business loans. I'd encourage them to try to reach out, to talk to people, make connections, develop those connections. I know there's a lot of amazing programs and facilities for entrepreneurs that can gain scholarships or grants or things along those lines, but start exploring, start networking.
Are the regulations more difficult to deal with today than they were, say, 10 years ago? Who does regulate you? Does the FDA regulate you? Does the health department?
Yeah, so we have two different sides. The FDA regulates our roasting wholesale side just because we're sending commerce across state lines.
Okay.
And then the Department of Agriculture does our both of our locations.
Because it's an agriculture product?
Yes, and so we don't have like a lot of restaurant license. There's some things that we're restricted on of what we can have and what we can't have, like dairy. We can't be like scooping ice cream or doing things along those slicing and cooking. So we have certain regulations that we have to follow. That's a difficult thing because those rules always change depending upon which health inspector. And it's I think sometimes the coffee shop is something that can throw them off a little bit. We just got dinged because of we didn't have a certain meat probe that they wanted to. And I'm not like, okay, that's the first thing I need to think of is getting a meat probe for a coffee shop. But there's those little things, but it's just, understanding the regulations that you need to have. And that's another thing I think that's tough, and those difficult things about entrepreneurship is there are a lot of regulations and a lot of red tape that you have to follow if you want to be above board and your shop not being one of those that shows up in the news.
Hey everybody, this is your host Todd Dantzler. As most of you know, I'm a partner with Saunders Real Estate and have been a very active and working broker for over 42 years. I have fostered strong relationships throughout the state of Florida, working on properties ranging from agriculture and development land to multifamily, commercial, and industrial projects. If you have any real estate needs at all, please give me a call. I'd love to help. My direct line is 863-877-2846. Thank you. So your two locations, one Gainesville, one's Lakeland. Gainesville, obviously a college town. I guess you could call Lakeland kind of a college town because of the different universities we have here. How hard is it to recruit talent? And, what do you look for? And talking to your wife before this, she was talking about the difficulty in bringing in college kids from different residencies around the United States, not just Florida or Polk County natives, and the rules are different as far as tax reporting and everything. It's got to be a nightmare.
Yes,
or at least a bad dream.
We've learned, yeah, absolutely. So if somebody's working outside the state of Florida, we have to report there's a lot of other different tax
if
legalities.
they're working for you and they come
from out of state. Yeah,
okay.
if they're licensed, that's one thing that we ask in an interview. Most of the time is, hey, do you have a Florida driver's license? It just is. It's not mandatory, but it's just something that we've seen. It's easier for us. It's easier to handle those taxes and things along those lines. Fortunately, though, our company is a very attractive workplace. Most college people see that the aspect of they come, and honestly, let me back up a little bit. We've really have tried to hire internally, and I'll say that in the sense of our staff is a really tight-knit family and community, and I can pretty much know off the top of my head within the first 30 seconds to a minute of, is this person going to fit? Are they showing up on time? Do they dress up? Not that they have to be in a suit and tie. It's a coffee shop job, but do they look like they just didn't roll out of bed? And asking why they want to work for us. And pretty much right then and there, I can gauge whether this person's going to be a good fit. But we also, if we're in need of if somebody leaves, I'll ask the staff, hey, do you guys have any friends? Because they don't want to mess that up. They don't want to mess up that community that's there. And so, fortunately, whenever we post, we get a ton of applications. And I know some people have struggled with retaining. That was a big thing, and still I think is a big thing of retaining employees. And fortunately, we show a lot of grace, but we also, Casey, our house manager, I'm always checking in with him. But I don't micromanage by any means. I want them to, and I've had a couple of our staff members that have said to me, I love the fact that you let us use all the equipment and play in quotations, but to figure it out, to let us make mistakes. And they're not going to learn if I say, this is how you have to do it all the time. I've been in those positions and it's tough. And so I think creating that environment where the staff, I said it before, that love just being there, even when they're off. So I don't think it helps answer that, but just creating an environment, I think is what we try to do.
I like how you said you show them grace, but you also have to show them accountability.
Yes.
And, we'll give you some room to navigate and explore how you want to do the job, but you're still accountable at the end of the day, and you got to do what we tell you to do and the way that we're trying to explain it to you.
Absolutely.
Does the national economy have much effect on you? I mean, is everyone still going to come and pay a few bucks for a cup of coffee? Does that really change much on your level?
Yeah, we even through COVID, when we had the regulations of you couldn't have people in your location, and we did coffee out of the back door. We haven't really seen a little bit, but people love their coffee.
Yeah,
people love, and especially that's the pride that we take. And people come and say, I have traveled all over the United States, and I travel for work and business, and I go to a lot of different coffee shops, and your coffee is the best that we have ever had. And that gives us joy, and that gives us pride. Obviously, we just got done with spring training, and a lot of the baseball players, the Tigers come in and their family, and they travel all over, and they're like, we just love it when we're here because of the coffee. So
those Yankees will drink a lot of coffee too.
Yes.
They like the coffee.
Yeah, when you have a great product, people are going to want to, and especially Lakeland and even Gainesville, they love supporting local.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people have said, what about this shop that's opening up these kind of, there's some chain shops that are there, but I'm like, I'm not worried because Lakeland supports Lakeland, and Gainesville does the same thing.
Have the tariffs affected the price of your importing of your coffee? Is it really you don't import that much to be affected, or it's got to have some effect, I would think.
Yeah, obviously, with I wouldn't say directly, like we see it more. Coffee is traded on a market just like the stock market.
Right.
So the price of coffee goes up and down throughout the day. A lot of what we see, yes, is with some of those tariffs, we see some things that it's the cost that we're seeing a lot of is obviously that, but it depends on the harvest. Coffee is a product that's dependent upon weather, location, and how much you can import. And so that drives a lot of that cost. More for us is, what is the cost of that coffee? But yeah, obviously when prices of cups go up, we've got to adjust in that. And that's something that we really try to stay competitive with is our prices. We don't want to be super high. We don't want to be super low. We want to be there where it's an approachable price for our customers. But yeah, obviously, the things hit and we have to adjust accordingly. How's
your company evolved over the last 10 years? I mean, we talked a little bit about food. We talked about product mix. Is there some stuff that 10 years ago, you're still nailing it? We were right on, or there's other things we really missed it on this one, so we evolved and are starting to do it this way.
I think in the beginning, we wanted to be this really high-end craft coffee shop. We got it. We nailed it. We were in the aspect, we didn't nail it by any means of where we're at now, but we brought a product into Lakeland that really wasn't there at the time. However, our customer service wasn't the greatest, and we noticed that right off the bat. And I think that myself coming on, one thing that we changed is I don't really typically, and I don't like to hire people that have coffee experience. I like to hire good people.
Right.
I can take somebody that has zero coffee knowledge, and I think almost all of our baristas now have come in with zero knowledge, and we've trained them how to make coffee, but it's harder to train somebody to be a good person. And I think that shift was really impactful because we don't want anybody leaving our shop thinking, they're too good for us or we don't know. So that was a big aspect. But I think continuing to focus on our craft of who we are. Well, obviously we've expanded. We have another side to the roasting company where we're able to, like we said, white label and ship a lot more coffee out. So we've grown that side of the company. But I think it's sticking to your roots. A lot of what Andy and I believed in. We haven't really tried to change a whole lot. Obviously things change with your social media and all of that, but we've really wanted to stay true to who we are. And I think that people have seen that, people want to bring people to Concord.
I drink coffee just because it's there. It's not, I don't wake up in the morning. I could have 2 cups of coffee at 10 o'clock at night, still go to bed. I mean, it doesn't really have much of an effect on me. But have you ever considered your own line of gourmet hot chocolate? Is that something you're doing now? Because not everyone likes coffee. You even said that, you'll have a cup, but you don't wake up in the morning thinking I got to get one now. Yeah.
So we have, within our shop, we worked with a company out of Tampa for all of our teas. We've worked with them from the very beginning. So we try to buy as much local as we can, products. And so, like I said, we work with a company out of Tampa for our tea. We actually make all of our syrups in-house. And so that's another thing I think that has separated us and made us not like almost, a lot of the other ones is that craft and that care of even the things that are going into the coffee. If people order a vanilla latte, they're getting the craft of our coffee, but they're also getting a product in the sauce, the vanilla syrup that we've made in-house.
That's unique to y'all.
Yeah, that's unique to us. But we've also have worked with some other companies here in town, Brew Hub. We've partnered with them numerous times on our coffee being infused in some of their beers that they've made. And so we've worked with some other companies like that in developing products. But nothing that we haven't bottled our coffee or anything like that.
You sound like you're still very happy you've done this and you don't have any regrets. I know it's not always been a cakewalk. You struggled like every young and small business does, but do you have any regrets about doing it, or say, I really wish I could have hit that curveball or that 98-mile-an-hour fastball and I was playing baseball or something else?
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously there's times when you're like, oh, I look back, you know, my son is into aviation. I was like, man, if I was an airline pilot, I could make, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. But then I'm like, well, no, then I might not have met this person or that person. Right. And so, you know, would I change anything? No. I think that I love the aspect. I'm big into outdoors, and, you know, I love going out and bow hunting and being able. So I have that flexibility to go out and really, you know, spend time with my family. I haven't missed, you know, rarely any of my son's activities. So, you know, that's stuff.
Important thing.
Yeah. And so I wouldn't take that back at all. And, you know, Concord has brought many friendships and relationships into my life that I wouldn't have had before that. And, you know, there's times where I'm like, you know, at home at night with Lindsay, I'm like, we need to sell this thing now because I'm tired of it. And then the next day I'm like, babe, guess what? You know, this is awesome. You know, and so you're going to have
Eli came into our shop today. Guess what, man?
Yeah.
Rock star Eli Nicholson.
And so it's, you know, we've had some of those. We've had John Cena showed up at our Lakeland shop. Jesse Palmer was in our Gainesville shop. So there's some cool things and some cool stories, but I think like anything, any job that you have, you're going to have your ups and your downs, and Concord is a blessing to us for sure.
That's a good place to be in your life. I mean, to not have those regrets. I mean, to have the conflicts and struggles, that's natural, but to not have any regrets about being here, that's a good place to be in your life and in your business.
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to a podcast, and the guy said, you know, they were talking about wealth and comparing, and obviously you can always look and say, well, I wish I had a little bit more, and especially those financial times. And I'm sure if my wife was in here, she'd be shaking her head of, yes, I wish the financial was a little bit better. But he said, you know, being able to go into a restaurant and not having to think about ordering off the menu, and if you're out on a nice date with my wife, and granted, can we go to the fanciest place? No, by any means. But if you look at where we're at and what we have, we are very blessed. And I think the statistic is $35,000 or more. You're in 1% of the world's.
Wow.
And so it's like you take and you hear those things, and realizing that you're in a 1% of the people in this world who are good, and it puts it into perspective. And so Concord has in these communities and certainly have been a blessing, and not just for me, but I mean, there's countless people that have had their first dates at Concord that now have families, kids that they bring back every Saturday because that's the place that they met. Right. And so you can't take back those stories and those relationships that have been built.
If you're wondering something special to do for your employees, please consider the Jelly of the Month Club. I did that for Eli whenever he gets a little upset that he's not quite getting that maximum dollar. I remind him that he got some grape jelly last month. That seems to calm him down a little bit.
That is our family's absolute favorite. We actually went and saw Chevy Chase live this past year. That's our favorite. I mean,
Todd,
so Eli, don't
Todd
complain.
just found out that's where that movie is. That's where that's from, is from that movie.
Christmas Vacation.
He just found that out.
I thought it was from Mrs. Santa Claus.
No, Christmas Vacation.
Oh, well.
Every line we can quote that.
Yeah, I can quote other movies. So mine's Blazing Saddles. That was a movie I enjoyed. So, you know, as wrapping things up, if someone wants to get in touch with you, if someone wants to talk about, hey, can you start supplying my office? Can you start supplying my corporation? I want to start doing some white coffee labels. How do they get in touch with you, TJ?
The easiest social media is just at Concord Coffee, CONCORD, and then I spelled that right, Eli?
Yeah. No E at the end of Concord. That was my mistake for 2 weeks.
But so reach us there, Concord Coffee at social media. You can email myself. It's just TJ at Concord Coffee. If you just Google us, you can that comes up, Instagram, Facebook, anything like that. So,
and your address here in Lakeland?
It's 1037 South Florida Avenue. Right here in Dixieland, and then it's 1380 up in West University, up in Gainesville. So, yeah, like I said, if you just Google Concord Coffee Lakeland or Concord Coffee Gainesville, those locations will pop up.
Well, is there anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about? Because I'm about done here. I got to go get some coffee.
No, absolutely. I appreciate I'm excited to kind of see these podcasts coming up with the launch of this, and it's exciting. I love, like I said, we've known each other for a while, and honored to be on your podcast.
I did go to high school with your mom.
Yes,
so
I thought that was.
She looks a lot younger than I do, but we are about the same age.
She'll love hearing that.
Yeah. So thanks for coming on and sharing your story about your coffee business, how you came up with the idea, and how you and your partners have figured out how to define each other's roles and who does what and how to do your promotions. It's very neat to hear. And something I've noticed is you have great passion for your business, and you can't keep that passion at a 24 hours a day, but when it wanes, you figure out a way to bring it back in. That's what entrepreneurs do, is there's no one else to do it for you. And so I appreciate you coming in, talking about the growth cycle, the life cycle of how Concord came about, and how you kind of overcame some of the struggles. So if you're looking for some coffee, Concord Coffee here in Lakeland or in Gainesville, again, they are our coffee sponsor, coffee supplier here at Saunders Real Estate. So no one's too small, no one's too big. They can take care of it all. So
absolutely.
Thank you for coming in, TJ. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Todd.
Hey, everybody. I want to thank you for listening to Todd's podcast. This has been your host, Todd Dantzler. As always, don't forget to rate, review, follow, and subscribe to Todd's podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you have any questions for me or any suggestions for future guests, please call or text our number at 863-288-0944 or visit todddantzler.com. Again, that's 863-288-0944, or visit my website, todddantzler.com. I look forward to hearing your questions and feedback, and please take care.